This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, who was a good netball player in primary school, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 73 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. I know you could be plenty of other places right now, so I really appreciate you joining me for whatever you are up to right now. So last week we had Jared Ward on the show. Jared is one of my favorite professional runners. He's so humble, so wise, so smart, but most of all, he puts his family first, which I think is so cool. Jared gave us advice for pacing, he shared some thoughts about the Boston Marathon and what he's up to next. And if you're nervous about how to pace yourself in a race, you better go back and listen to that one. Today is a very special one, so I just want to tell you a bit of a backstory. So a few months ago, I did one of those episodes where I featured the Running for Real Superstars community. Now, some of the people from our Facebook group had never been on a microphone before, they'd never done anything like this, but I thought this might be something a bit different and would be fun to do to kind of feature people. But as I released the episode, I kind of held my breath. I wasn't sure how it was going to go down. Not only is it not the usual flow of a 45 to 60 minute episode to really get in deep with my guests, but these runners were just, quote unquote, I hate this term, but it's what you say, everyday runners from the Running for Real Superstars community. These weren't famous people, and in fact, these are probably the runners who would get excited if they did see one of my regular guests. But I knew it was going to be worth the risk as I wanted to share these people. They too had amazing stories and it allowed us to get to know them a little bit better. Well, I had no reason to worry because the episode was definitely a fan favorite of yours and you loved it and requested more for that matter. So here we go. Today I have more of the Running for Real Superstars community. And if you have no idea what I am talking about right now, if you've not already joined, now is the time. Come join us at tinamuir.com/superstars to get in. All you need to do is answer a few questions. And don't worry, they aren't hard tests or anything. It's just literally to make sure that you are not a spam bot because we all hate spam and they just appear everywhere. So I needed these questions to actually just make sure that it was real people who could actually read what I was writing before I let them in. So today you're going to hear from Tawni Gomes, Joe Dannaoui, Allison McArthur, Florian Kraemer, Alfred Jongsma, and Julie Atkinson. And you're going to love each and every one of them. They all have a really cool, unique story to share. Some things you will not quite believe. But before we meet our sponsors, Hoka One, and Body Health, I just wanted to thank you for those of you who have left me a review on iTunes and shared this podcast with your running community. That was the best 30th birthday gift that you could have given me, and I'm so grateful to anyone who has. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Right, let's go meet the sponsors, and we will be right to the episode. This podcast is sponsored by Hoka One. Hoka One is a running shoe unlike any other, and you're going to love it. If you haven't tried them yet, what are you waiting for? Run in their newest release, the Bondi 6. Run for any distance with a plush, soft ride. The Bondi 6 is the sweetest cushion. Thank you to Body Health for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Perfect Amino has been supporting me in my training for years now, and I need it even more now I'm trying to get back into running. I forgot how sore you get when you start running again, but at least I know I have something in my corner to help me recover. Remember, coupon code TINA10 will get you 10% off at bodyhealth.com. Tawni, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. A very valued and loved member of our community. Thanks so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking.
No, of course you are. And as I was saying to you before, you have the most interesting story. I'm really excited to dig into this. And I'm sure people have absolutely no idea that this is your past. But firstly, tell us just a bit about you. Who is Tawni Gomes? Or is it Gomes? Did I say it right?
It's Gomes. It's Portuguese.
Gomes. Okay.
Gomes. So I'm a runner, a very passionate runner. I've done many things in my life, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about. But I currently am working for a startup company launching a new beverage. and just recently moved back to Southern California,
bubbly,
which it's not. That's Pepsi, but that'd be good. I wish.
I see that everywhere. Anyway,
they've done a great job at launching that. I'm hoping they buy us though. But yes, I've been busy launching that brand and just recently moved back to Southern California, so where I'm born and raised. So I'm very happy about that. Mm-hmm. And very happy. I was trying to think when you asked me, when did I join the community? I don't know if you have a way to look that up, but I drive all day long. So I get up at 3:00 in the morning and I drive from store to store to store to store to store. And I got into listening to podcasts first with Runner's World. I used to listen to the Runner's World podcast, which I don't even think they have that anymore. And then somehow through that, I found the Runners Connect, and then somehow from that you were starting your own thing. I can't remember the time frame, but that's how I originally found you. And I know you're going to probably get into this, but it so reminded me of back in the 90s with my group.
Yes, and let's talk about that. Tell us about. Well, firstly, let's backtrack. I want to hear talk about the group, which is one of the major things. But tell us, your story. You went from being morbidly obese, in your own words. You found running and you were inspired by the Oprah show at 295 pounds. Tell us what happened next.
Okay. So most of my life, I came to running late in life, like in my mid 30s. So I had always struggled with my weight, and I had always been a huge Oprah fan. And huge Oprah fan. Like I used to have pictures of her and I just thought someday I'm going to meet her. I don't know how I'm going to meet her, but someday I'm going to meet her. And the closest I came, before I actually was on her show, but the closest I came is I used to fly to Chicago for work. This is in the 90s. And finally, after like a year of trying to get tickets to her show, which are impossible to get, I paid so many concierges at hotels. I was bribing everybody to try to get on her show. And I finally got in the audience, but she had stopped shaking everybody's hands. So I didn't get to shake her hand, but just to be in the presence of greatness was awesome. So, I was watching a show, on a business trip, and it was the show that she had on with her trainer, Bob Green. They had written a book called Make the Connection. And I went out, I was on a business trip. I went out, bought the book, read it all night. And when I got back to my house, I bought a treadmill and I started walking while I was watching. Back then it was VCR. Mm-hmm. So I would watch till the first commercial because I was 300 pounds, too out of shape. And I would think, well, I'm going to sit on the couch and watch Oprah anyway. I might as well walk on the treadmill. And so Oprah is a huge part of my story because I'd go, okay, now I'm going to make it to the second commercial. And then I'm going to make it to the third commercial. And then I'm going to, eventually, obviously I got to the whole show. So I could walk the whole Oprah show on the treadmill. And I'm way condensing this because you don't have all day for me to tell my story. But through that, okay, this is before you guys, your listeners need to know, this is before Google, before Facebook. This is the 90s. Cell phones were just barely, they were the big brick cell phones. So I went online because I thought, well, Oprah always has these book clubs. There must be like a book club for this book, Make the Connection. But I couldn't find anything. So there's just Yahoo groups. And so I posted a message on the Yahoo groups. Has anybody read this book? It's really inspired me. And then people started writing on this message board. And one thing led to another. And there was like, well, somebody should have a group. And I thought, okay, I'll start one. So I started a group, an online support group, again, before Google, before Facebook. And we called ourselves the Connectors based on the book, Make the Connection. And I would send out a thought for the day every day. I didn't even know what the heck I was doing. I mean, I'm thinking, why am I lead? I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'd send out a thought and I'd talk about how depressed I was. And I would talk about, people making fun of how fat I was. And I'd talk about, I would just talk about whatever. Nowadays they call that blogging, but back then it was just on this message board. So, I would send a thought every single day. And, I went out walking, for the first time outside because I only ever did this on the treadmill and I got hit by a car.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got hit by this car, I was on disability. I was working for a big Fortune 500 company. And so while I was on disability, I really decided I'm going to just figure out how to make this thing happen. And so I don't know anything about technology, but anyway, I got help and I just figured it out. And so I started dividing group space by state. And so I had regions in every state, and then we had branched out into the world. And it was the most amazing thing I'd ever done. And I created.
How many people were in the group by the end? You put me to shame.
It was 100,000 people.
Incredible.
I think, and I answered every single email personally.
Incredible. Amazing.
Yeah, by working full time. But I mean, they're still my very best friends today are friends that I met from my online support group that I founded in 1996. It's just been life changing. Then we were on the Oprah show, and then Oprah would fly us here. And then I was on the Oprah show multiple times. I wrote a book.
Featured in Bob Green's book as well.
Yeah, I was on the cover of Bob Green's book, who's Oprah's trainer. Yeah, I mean, who would have thought?
I know. It's incredible, Tawni. Absolutely. I bet no one in the community knows about this story. And, there's me us with our community of 3,500, and you built 100,000 in a time when there was no real, internet groups. It's just absolutely amazing what you managed to do, and to meet Oprah as well.
Obviously, it was Oprah because I was posting on the message boards for Oprah. So, I mean, I can only take, half the credit because they were on Oprah's message board originally. And then I took them off because so many people were writing me. And back then I was ahead of my time because there's no Instagram or anything. And all of a sudden people just started turning to me for all this stuff. And I'm thinking, why are they asking me? I don't know. I'm eating a gallon of ice cream a day. What do I know? But it really, and then companies started hiring me to consult. This is why I think it's awesome for you. So back in the day, this is before you were born, but so back then it was fat-free was trying to be everything. So now it's gluten-free. But back then, Kraft hired me because they were trying to come up with what is now fat-free ranch dressing. So all these companies would hire me and my group for focus groups, all these clothing companies. So nowadays, clothing that you know of, they were trying to make things for overweight women that were wanting to exercise. Now there's clothes for overweight people. But back in the 90s, you had to weigh 80 pounds to find a bra. And so they'd hire me to consult on all these products to appeal to people that were trying to get into health and fitness. So it just was an amazing, a 10-year, my book came out in 2000. I ran it probably till about 2004, 2005. And then, as I say, I had to get a real job, but life-changing. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, and amazing just to hear that. And one more question before we get to most of your story here is taken up our time, but I've loved learning in it. Okay, one more thing, as everyone has got to know, is she as amazing as you would think she is? Oprah. She is even more so. I think I get asked this all the time. What people don't probably realize about her, she is hysterically funny. She is so funny. She's just so funny. But yeah, you're in the presence of greatness. Yeah. And it's something I'm forever grateful. Now I'm back in town. I can visit her more often because she doesn't live too far from me. Wow. So, yeah, she lives in Santa Barbara, so it's not too far. That is so cool. Yeah. Well, you have to let us know next time you do. So at the beginning of the interview, you said that the community, the Superstars community, reminded you of, and then I interrupted you and made you tell your story. Yeah. What were you going to say? What does the Superstars community mean to you? Well, when I founded my group Connectors, it was all about being authentic and being real and being honest. And again, this is way before Instagram and all that, but it was I was the leader of the group and the founder of the group, and I was still eating ice cream by the gallons. And, Domino's Pizza was on my speed dial, and I would talk about it, and I would talk about, the sexual abuse I endured. And I'd talk about,
sexual harassment at my company and how, I had to put up with all these men constantly harassing me and thinking that I deserved it. But yet I kind of knew I didn't deserve it. But like everywhere I went, it just seemed like it would be there. So I would think, well, what am I doing? That's, and I could talk to all these women. It was a women only group back when I started it, but then we let men in. After we were on the cover of Runner's World magazine, the group like jumped up another, 30, 40,000. And so their men would ask if they could be a part of it. And so I let men be a part of it. But the superstar community they're authentic. You can talk about really anything in there, and get support. And, obviously it's running related most of the time, but it just, in fact, my connectors, which are still my best friends, I tell them about it because they said, oh my God, it's just like Connectors when you started Connectors. And I said, just so sweet. And I've been going crazy trying to start this brand, so I don't have as much time as I'd love to have. But I think you could have what I did. I traveled the world, Tina. I traveled the world.
That's so cool. And
Connectors would host me. And we'd meet up and we'd walk in parks, and I'd do when my book came out, I would do book signings. So I've envisioned I have a whole business plan for you, like all the things that I did that just are, and the community just keeps growing and growing. Yeah. I didn't have a podcast, but I did do a radio show for a short time, but, there's a lot of similarities, just the greatness of the community.
Yeah, and it is a wonderful place, and you are a wonderful part of it, which we love. And just to kind of wrap up here, what is a Running for Real moment you'd like to share?
Gosh, I have them all the time, it seems like. I would say when I recently moved back to Southern California, I put aside a box and I labeled it the first 48 hours. And I put in there anything that I would need for the first 48 hours. And I had my Running for Real shirt. Oh. I had my running shoes. The move was very, as I told you off mic, it was very traumatic's not the right word, but just I really was depending on the community. So I think the Running for Real is just knowing, thank God for running and thank God for the community. Because even though I did everything by myself and I am so alone, I take refuge in the community because I think, okay, if I'm having a bad time or whatever, I'll just try to get out of myself and go online and help somebody else.
And you do. And that's wonderful. And I love that. And Tawni was just telling me before that she was imagining superstars like lining the road when she was worrying about things. So it's so cool that but we've all just become so entangled with each other in the best way. Yes. So Tawni, thank you so much for sharing your story. This has been wonderful. I'm sure the others have loved learning about it. Thank you so much for all that you do in the community.
My pleasure.
Joe, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. I am really excited for everyone to get to know you more. Thanks so much for joining me on your holiday or vacation, as we say here in the US. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, this is exciting. Joe is actually in the US right now on his vacation, which is pretty exciting with your brother, right? Is that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He's actually getting married this weekend.
Oh, well, congrats. He will be... Well, not long married. He will be happily married by the time this goes live. But that's exciting either way. You've got a fun trip planned. But to kind of go the complete other direction, but I know it's something you wanted to talk about because it's something that's important. And not only is it important to you, but it's something that's kind of very topical right now because it is something that's previously been brushed under the carpet, but things are beginning to kind of make their way out into the limelight. You yourself have struggled with depression. You talked to me about being, almost suicidal at times. And many of the people listening to this may have been in that situation or at least been in tough moments where they're really struggling. So what would you say to people from what you've learned about being in that and kind of coming out the other side?
Well, first of all, talk about it, I think, is the first thing, because there's this great stigma associated with it. I'm not sure if it's the same here in the States, but definitely in Australia. So. People aren't likely to talk about it because it's seen as a sign of weakness. But one thing that I've learned through Running for Real, the more I talked about it, the more I realised, look, there are other people and they're surviving and they're getting through and they have strategies. So that's probably the first point, really just find at least one person to talk to. And it doesn't have to be professional, so you don't have to, I'm not going to go see a shrink, I'm not going to find someone. It may be a best friend, it may be a work colleague. And the other thing is keep moving. One thing that I've benefited from. So if that means running, by all means running. It could mean yoga, it could mean swimming. But keep moving, because I found initially you probably don't know that that's a good idea, but you will in time. That changes the chemicals in your head, I guess, and makes you have a more positive experience or positive viewpoint to what's going on around you, and helps you deal with difficult situations, because they will arise. They always arise. That's never going to change. But when you do the running or whatever it is and you face a difficult situation, they don't seem as bad anymore. So, so talk to someone and move. Probably my big two.
And would the moving aspect be difficult at first? I could see, even on days where I've been, feeling a bit down, it's kind of like, what does it matter anyway? Like, is it difficult to kind of maybe get yourself going if you are in one of those slumps?
Yeah, so it is. It is. And what I'd say is, instead of saying I'm going to run 4 days a week, you set yourself like a monthly target. So you might say I'm going to run X amount of times. Because when you are depressed, you'll have weeks where you'll just, I don't want to talk to anybody, I want to just sit by myself. But then you'll have moments going, I think I might go for a run. So you still set yourself some targets to get out of the door, because sometimes it is difficult. Sometimes it is difficult to get out. But I find, like, at this stage with me, now that I've done it for over 4 years, it's just something I've got to do. And I've got to the point now, it's sort of like medicine. So I've got to get out the door, but without making it an obsession. So I'm not running 7 days a week. It sort of sits anywhere between 3 to 5 a week. And it's how I feel. So if I feel tired or exhausted, just listen to my body, don't run.
So is that important as well, that you don't kind of end up using running as this way to kind of avoid all your problems and kind of like pound yourself into the ground, if your body can even handle it, to where you have to kind of say, as long as I get out the door, get moving, give myself 5-10 minutes, that's okay. But if I don't make it any further, or if I just don't want to do it, then that's all right. I can still stop at less. I'm just trying to think of, like, if setting a target, like if you had a target, would that then make you feel like, well, I have to go do this? And, I said I was going to do 7 miles, so I'm going to do 7 miles, even if you don't feel like it.
Yeah, I think you need to have some mercy on yourself, because honestly, like, there are times I've woken up and I've gone, I'm not running today. That's not going to happen, and I don't feel bad for it. It doesn't hook in with, the negative mood. It's like, okay, well, it's not today, but you know what? It's probably going to be tomorrow or the day after, and when I can, I will. Or if it's a big stint where I know I'm not going to run because, let's say, I'm injured, I'll do something else. I'll go do yoga, or I'll go do swimming, or I'll do something, or even just walking, just moving and keep myself moving, because the act of moving stops me from being in that dark space, especially like in the very worst of it at the very start. Like, I was in a vortex. It was really terrible, really dark vortex, and I couldn't see out of it. But in the time that I was running, the vortex just stopped. I was running, I was out, I was enjoying it. I'd come back, and then, it would flare up every so often. But it just takes time, and you develop strategies, and you need to do hard stuff. I think that's one of the things that's changed for me. Like, I've managed to do a couple of marathons and really set some difficult challenges, and that's helped greatly. So now when I face a difficult situation, I'll say, man, Joe, shut up. You've run a marathon. You've trained like 18 weeks. You showed up day in, day out. Well, this isn't a big deal. Shut up. Get up. Get going. And it's remarkable that doing something difficult in terms of getting ready for a marathon can have such a profound impact on mental state. So while I don't recommend everyone, like, if you've never done a marathon, I don't recommend anyone to go out and sign up one right now, because that is a lot of work. But, if you are going through, a difficult state, like if you are depressed or you're really struggling with anxiety, do something difficult, because you know what, you're going to surprise yourself. You are really going to surprise yourself. You're going, no, I can do this. And one of the things I know I've told you about is, you know, when I rocked up to my second marathon, so the Melbourne Marathon, I was just smiling. I was wrapped, smiling from ear to ear. There I was at the start line, not at the end, at the start. I was smiling. Oh, my goodness, 18 weeks, solid training, and here I am. And that always plays back in my mind. Like I still have dark moments, but that's the stuff I go back to now.
Yeah.
I go, that is it. That's the thing that's allowed me to show up better for myself, for my wife, for my two girls, for the students that I teach. So yeah, it's had a pretty big impact.
So how do you find that balance between, you said picking a challenge or picking a goal? What about someone who maybe does struggle with this, but then keeps ending up injured? So every time they're like, you know, get sucked even deeper down because that, you know, that thing they were kind of putting their, I don't want to say their hope on, but kind of that was pulling them out of this depression is now gone. How do you find the balance?
Well, you know, when I ran my first marathon, that's exactly what happened to me. I just said, you know what, I was doing the Hanson Marathon method. I was training 5 to 6 days a week, and I had an overuse injury. And 1 month out, I could barely run. And I was in a lot of trouble. And then, so after I finished that marathon, I had to reevaluate, well, what is it that I really wanted? And what I really wanted was to run. I want to run today, and I want to run in my 50s and 60s and 70s. So what does that look like? So then I went on a journey on, you know, I looked at running form. I looked at mental strength. I looked at diet. I looked at a whole range of things, and just started rebuilding myself to a place where I'd be happy. So when I did get to my second marathon, it was, do I need to follow that plan exactly? No. Do I need to get to the start line? Yes. So if that means taking a break, I will.
Okay.
And if that means on the day that I don't finish, or I don't finish at the time that I wanted to finish, that's okay too. Because my bigger, longer-term goal, my bigger why is that the running is my medicine. And if I'm running or if I'm moving, then that's what I need to focus on.
Yeah.
Because I think when I first started running, I was so consumed about PBs and distances and lots of different things, and I missed the point. I missed the point what running was doing. And now it's like, I'm going to go for a run and I'm going to enjoy it, and you know, it's not a big deal. Like, do I like PBs? Yeah, look, who doesn't, right? Who doesn't want to run fast? But I'm 46. Maybe I've got a few more years in me to get a little bit faster. But then that's sort of it, you know. And then from then on, it's you know, can I continue to keep moving as I'm getting older?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for sharing, Joe, and for being honest. And, you know, that's why I thought this was such an interesting thing to talk about is, you know, you're so positive in the group. Probably no one would know. I didn't even know the extent of it until we kind of were going back and forth before. But it's probably quite common within the group. So that's why I wanted to have you know, talk about this, because it is something that, you know, is going on behind the scenes of a lot of people. So what does the Running for Real community mean to you?
You know, it's for me, it's my safe space, because I know there are people going through that. So I can, like, out of all the groups I belong to, it's the one space where I can be open and say, hey, this is who I truly am. And I know that I'm not going to have people walk all over me, which is really important, because I know there are other people in the group who are going through the same thing. Either I can help them or vice versa, and they can help me. I hear like wonderful strategies that are being posted online, you know, and the great thing is it brings a sense of normality to everything. You know, you hear them think and you go, oh, that sounds just like me, you know, because, you know, if you don't talk to anyone else, you have all these assumptions that you make about other runners and it's not true. Like, a lot of runners actually similar to how I think, so I'll say, that sounds like me.
Yeah.
You know, and having that sort of alignment in thought, go, okay, then I go back to those thoughts of, well, this isn't so bad. You know, I've heard about, you know, they're going through this and they got through it by doing whatever they did. So, yeah, the group is my, I don't know, my little safe space.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing is, like, you learn so much. I mean, you see all the posts. They're not only like we can talk about the running gear and whatever, but there's the stuff that people talk about in terms of how they show up best for a training run or how they show up best for a run. And it gives you clues and insights of, okay, I'd like to see how that would work for me.
Yeah.
And some of that just applies to daily life stuff, you know, and they talk about their own struggles during the run. They go, okay, you know, and that might be a struggle that I might face, let's say, with my students or with my kids. And so there's lots of good material that people share, which I think is fantastic, which makes the group so unique.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing that and for explaining it. And just to round up here, what is a running for real moment you'd like to share?
I had to think about this because you asked me this was going to happen. And I think generally I've had a pretty positive running experience, but I can't think of one moment.
It can be a positive one if you want.
Okay, so a positive one. So I was running the Geelong Half Marathon a couple of years ago, and I didn't really train that hard. I knew that I could go faster, but I wasn't sure how much faster, but I thought I'd give it a crack. So there I was trying to get 5-minute splits per K, and I was about the 8K mark. I was feeling great, and you know what, I could probably go faster. And I said to myself, Joe, shut up. You can't go faster. Just hang in there because you don't know what this is going to feel like later. So I get to the 11K mark, and sure enough, I need to stop. I just want to walk now. I've had enough. And then it was just that mental, like, no, just focus on this K. Don't worry. Don't worry about 13 or 14 or 15. You keep going. Yep. So, and there I was, and I got to 14, and I was feeling more tired, and I said, you know what? Doesn't matter what happens. You're getting a PB now. So just relax. Take a chill pill. Enjoy it. But still focus step after step. I was going marginally slower, but I was still doing really well. I get to the 17K mark. I see one of my running friends, and he says, Joe, you're looking good. Keep going. And in my head, I've gone, yeah, well, whatever. Okay, fine. And I overtook him. But as I overtook him, I saw the 1:45 pacer for the half marathon. I looked at him, I thought, you know what? I could probably catch him. He's out in the distance. You know, he was, I don't know, maybe 400 metres away from me. And when you're exhausted, 400 metres is a long way, by the way, trying to catch someone. And then just inch by inch and just focus on him. So just my vision just narrowed really quickly. And then 0.4 Ks, I got him.
Wow.
I got him. And then I managed to go sub 1:45. And that was while the PR, and I've said this to other people, while the PR was nice with PB, it taught me a lot mentally about myself.
Yeah.
And I've used that now in other runs, and I think that's great. And I think everyone should be going through that kind of process as well. Just pushing themselves and finding out what they can do mentally.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you so much for sharing, Joe. That's great, and definitely a good example to others of see what you're made of. Well, we're going to wrap up this here, but thank you so much for all that you do in the community. We value you so much. You are well loved, and rightly so. So thanks, Joe, for all that you've done to help me and all that you've done to help so many others. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Tina.
Allison, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast on this Superstars episode. Thank you so much for joining me, and tell me, who is Allison McArthur?
Oh, a good question. I don't know what everybody wants to know or what they know already about me. I'm based in Scotland. I'm a high school English teacher, and I've been running since probably about my late 20s, and I've got a milestone birthday coming up this year, so it's been a while.
Will you share with us which milestone that is?
I'll be 40. I kind of can't believe it.
I'm by the time this goes live, I'll be 30, which is weird thinking about. But even that for me, being when I was, when you're a kid, you're like 30, you might as well be like on your deathbed because that seems so old. And now I feel like that's not actually that old. So yeah, it's funny. But even 40 now doesn't seem that old. As they say, like, the numbers just keep going up. So it's not that big of a deal. But you told us, you started running, you loved running, and you love running so much that your wedding in 2010 actually had a running theme. Now, I'd love to hear about that because I'm sure other runners would love to learn.
We had a cake made that had little running figures on it, and it was the Race for Love.
Oh, that's cool. Like instead of the figurines, the traditional ones that people have?
Yeah, they were little runners.
Yeah, love that.
And for our gifts for the wedding party, rather than getting, favours or jewellery and things, we got little medals put in a presentation box with the date of our wedding on them.
So I know that all the runners who would have been at your wedding would have loved that, but did you get any funny remarks from people who were non-runners? I'm just imagining like my own life and how I feel like a lot of people who are non-runners would be like, why are you so obsessed with this weird sport? Like, did you get any funny remarks from people?
The way we did it, that was for kind of my family, his family, and, all the people who were closest to us. So they all knew exactly what we were like, and that would be a fairly likely scenario that the running would creep in somewhere.
I love that. And your husband, Stephen, is actually also in the group.
He is now.
Yeah, and he's been an active member, which we've been quite enjoying. And you, within the group, within the Superstars community, are kind of known for your leggings. We quite often see posts where people will be out and about shopping, and they'll see some, should we say, eccentric, fashionable tights, and they will think of you, even though many of them haven't met you. Have you always been someone who loved bright colours and patterns? And then the second part of that question, on going to that, now that those are kind of in style, is there any part of you that's like, hey, that was my thing?
I knew you would ask me about this. And actually, I was thinking about this recently, and the way what I like to wear to running has evolved. Because probably when I started running, I really wanted to just disappear into the background, and everything was like black or grey and one colour and really quite dull. But the more I ran and the more adventurous I got with things, I think it probably began just with things that were a little bit patterned. I think my mum found a few things. I'd be like, I'll just get these leggings. I've got a bit of a pattern in them. And then I found all these websites with these really crazy designs. And I was like, hey, this can still be fun. Just, I'm taking my running serious, but why can I not put on crazy leggings with like donuts and unicorns all over them and go out and run as well? I'm still running, but it's just bringing a smile to people's faces as I do it. And when I see lots of people now, a little bit, it was like, yeah, I've been doing that for a while now. For once in my life, maybe I was actually quite ahead of the game.
Yeah, you're a fashion trendsetter.
Rather than late to the party.
Love that. And, with that, you do a lot of park runs in the UK. Now, for those listening who don't know what that is, I do have a specific episode with the founder of Parkrun, Paul Sinton Hewitt. I would recommend going to listen to that. But park runs are basically a weekly group run, pretty much in every city in the UK and some cities in the US and other countries, where it's free. You just meet up in the town at the same place. It's the same course every week, every Saturday, usually at 9 a.m. And it's just really fun. But you do a lot of those. You often dress up themes of what's going on.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us some of the fun ones that you've done for those community people who haven't seen in the group.
Well, my local park run, our sort of birthday, as it were, falls in November, and they usually theme that every year. So there was one year it was beach party, which is kind of tricky in November. So that needed quite a lot of quite bright clothing. And then I think my favourite one was superheroes, and I managed to cobble together a kind of Supergirl-esque outfit that involved borrowing a cape from my sister and all kinds of things. That was really good fun. Some of the other things I've done haven't been so much parkrun ones. Like every Christmas Eve, and I really like to go and do one of the Santa runs and get all dressed up for that.
And you dressed up for the royal wedding, didn't you, that day?
I did. I had this hairband that had a tiara on it, which actually is a running one, and found a kind of sort of princessy kind of running top and put a nice running skirt on, and thought, I'm just going to the most of this, why not?
Yeah, no, I love that. And for those listening who, why would you encourage someone to maybe, wear some fun clothes, like you said, unicorns or donuts, or dress up maybe a little bit? And like you said, it doesn't mean that you can't take your running seriously, but what would be your advice for someone who's thinking about, bringing some fun into their running?
Just have fun with it. If you're really used to wearing quite dark things, or, just something that's one colour, just try wearing a brighter top or something. It's funny how it makes a bit more, and people notice and they say, I really like that, and those are cool, where are they from? And just makes it a lot more interesting.
Love that. That's so true, so true. Okay, so Alison, what does the Running for Real Superstars community mean to you?
I love it because everybody is so friendly and so supportive. And actually, if it wasn't for the superstars and maybe a couple other groups that I'm involved in, I probably wouldn't go on Facebook that much anymore, because everywhere else is just kind of dull and boring. And I've been in running groups before where it's just full of people who are like, yeah, so I've got the flu and my leg's broken and I'm dragging things behind me, but am I still okay for my run? And you're just like, no, just stop this. You know, you have to stop sometimes. Whereas in the superstars, everyone's just celebrating what they've achieved, but also saying, do you know what, I'm just having a really bad day because it's too hot, or I'm having a really bad day because I've not had enough sleep, and hey, I got out for my run anyway and it was cool, and I just accept that it wasn't my day.
Yeah, no, I love that. Or like we've got things like when Pete Davey was like, I need motivation for my run, and he had like 20 or 30 people who gave him a kick up the butt to get going the next day, which I loved. Okay, and one more question for you, Alison. What is a running for real moment that you'd like to share with us?
People in the group already know, and that was the time that I got attacked by the big scary, I think it was a buzzard, less than a mile from my house. It must have been last August, I think, and I knew that this bird of prey is up the road from me, and it has attacked people before, but I didn't think it was that kind of time of year. So I set off on this 16-mile marathon trail run, and a little way up the hill just felt something hit my head, and then realised as I got quite a close look at this bird's undercarriage exactly what was going on. So my 16-mile run started with a bonus hill sprint with my heart pounding out my chest. But as it circled round and round, I was waving my arms and squealing and trying to make it just disappear. And then when I eventually felt kind of safe and stopped, I was like, oh, I really want to go. And I just kind of blubbering away to myself. But of course, the way back home was back past the bird, so there's no way that I was going there. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to keep running. The short route home is 9 miles, and with the logic of a marathon runner's brain, I was like, well, if I'm running 9 miles, I might as well do the full 16 I set out to do, although I did stop a few times to text people and just be like, this is happening and I really need you to encourage me and keep me going. But probably looking back, it was quite good mental training that I could deal with that and keep on going. It wasn't my greatest run ever, but I did it, and I was quite pleased that I did it.
So if anyone ever attacks you...
I've not been up that way since.
If anyone ever attacks you while you're in a race, you know that you have the mental capacity to handle it. Okay, well, hopefully that never happens. But Alison, thank you so much for sharing with us today. You are a wonderful member of the community. We absolutely love you, and I'm sure the others have enjoyed getting to know you today.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Florian, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. I am really excited to get a glimpse into your world. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure to talk to you, Tina.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So firstly, I'm going to give you a nice loaded question that's difficult to answer. Who is Florian? Tell us all about you and, what you'd like to share with the community.
Well,
maybe not all about you, actually. I guess all about you might take a little while.
Be a little bit long. I'm German, which is probably easy to determine by now. Mm-hmm. I lived for a time in the States, about 5 years. I am a hiker, a cyclist, backpacker. I run. I'm trained as a biochemist, which is...
Explains a lot.
Yeah, I guess, right? I mean, I do read papers. It's something that I'm passionate about. I am like the typical nerd geek in some aspects. Like, as I said, I'm a scientist by training, so I think that all goes into each other.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And actually, that leads on quite nicely to my first question to you, which is, you already said you're about the science, you love learning, you love reading the papers and things. So in theory, it would seem like someone like you would love the tech and the paces, and you have, played around with that, but you've found that running by feel is the best way to be. So how did you kind of compartmentalize or get in your brain of how you could ignore those numbers and stats things while you were running and actually just learn to listen to your body?
I would say, first of all, probably because I started before GPS watches were really affordable. Mm-hmm. So and the second part probably is that I got into running through trail running. And with trail running, yes, you can train by paces. It's certainly possible, I assume, but in the end, the course dictates your pace.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make much sense if you're on an uphill, it doesn't make much sense to try to hit a 6-minute mile going uphill and then going a 6-minute mile downhill. You just have to let the course dictate what you're doing in a certain way and have to adapt. So paces really never made much sense to me from that aspect, because even if I could train by them, I can't race by them.
Mm-hmm. Do you think if you had not come in through trail running and you'd started out on the roads, do you think your answer would have been the same?
Probably, because I get really annoyed by stuff buzzing and beeping at me when I run.
That's good.
I do have my watch on silent, so it vibrates actually it doesn't vibrate for anything really right now.
Which is good.
But I can't stand repeated noises. So, for example, I tape my keys together because I really don't like the sound of jingling. Just drives me crazy if it repeats. And so I probably wouldn't. And also when I cycled, I never really trained by speed there either, which was not GPS based, but of course much easier with just with wheel sensor.
Yeah. And, related to that, so what would you say to someone who is skeptical about running by feel, who says, you see this a lot in the community, who says, I need my watch, I'll start out too fast, or I'll start out too slow, or I need to see my paces. What would be your advice for that?
Well, I think, first of all, you don't. Just don't, and just give it a try. I can see it, especially for perhaps like a beginner marathoner, being afraid going out too hard, because after a taper you do feel pretty amazing for the first couple of kilometers. So, but even then you can look at your breathing patterns to gauge your effort there. If you want something that is a little bit more obvious than how you feel, you can really just look at how am I breathing? Can I breathe through my nose? Am I just totally out of breath really right from the beginning? So that's how you can dial it in already in the beginning, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no, that's good. Thank you. And, as I've already mentioned, you are kind of known as the guy who can back it up with science. I'll often tag you in things to say, if someone has a question, I might say, well, let's ask Florian, or let's get his thoughts on here. And you always have interesting things to say. Before we get on to the last thing I want to ask you about, which you mentioned to me, why within the Running for Real community, what does it mean to you to be able to contribute and to get your kind of thoughts out there and help other people? Why is it the Running for Real community is a great place for you to be?
It's fun, mostly. Mm-hmm. I think with my background a little bit, I do enjoy passing on knowledge. I enjoy teaching, and I just enjoy talking running, and I enjoy talking science, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And the community is a really great place to do that. None of my friends really run, or at least not in the sense that I run. They might do a 5K or go out once or twice a week, but they're not passionate about it. It's something they would like to do. They enjoy it from time to time, but mostly they keep fit otherwise. So in that sense, I do have one or two people who I run with on occasion, but it's not that common. And so I love just talking, and the community is great for talking with people. You see a lot of different viewpoints. You see it's a big international community, which is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I think that's really what drives me there, and it's incredibly supportive. Mm-hmm. It's very enjoyable. Some of the areas I have seen on the internet and I'm familiar with are, toxic is pretty much the best word for that. And on Let's Run, that can be one of those examples. It doesn't have to be, but it can be a little bit tougher. And it's not something that I enjoy that much.
No, and why would anyone really? I mean, we do put ourselves in these situations where we are surrounded by people who do make us feel bad, but why not put yourself in a place where you do feel good? And we love your contributions. I can speak on behalf of the group. But one other thing you wanted to, maybe talk about was you said you've started to volunteer at races to give back. And you said it's been really rewarding for you. What would be your suggestion for others? Why should they go volunteer and, give their services to kind of help out at races?
I think first and foremost, it's without the volunteers, the races don't happen.
Sure.
Or if they happen, they would cost a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, compared to the US, European races are quite a lot cheaper actually already, but still, it's just not happening without people who just give their free time for it. So that's one of the things. You probably can't race all the races that are there during the year in your area. So why not go out once or twice and just, offer your time up so that other people can have fun while you actually also will have fun, I think. I have done helping out with the start. I have handed out refreshments afterwards. And it's a very interesting experience, I think, to see it from the sideline, because a lot of the emotion, like when the starting gun goes off and the countdown to the start, you do feel it. It's there in the air, and you participate. You're not running that day, but you are still part of it, and it is really a lot of fun. And yeah, as I said, it's quite rewarding to do.
Yeah.
So that's why I should suggest to do it.
Yeah. Which place did you enjoy the most? I mean, like which area of the race, not which location.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant which race I enjoyed the most.
Which part of the volunteering did you enjoy the most?
I think handing out refreshments afterwards.
Okay.
So far,
seeing the faces. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Seeing the faces, you can congratulate everybody who comes along. You give them something that they really, really want to have at that point.
That's true. And did being a volunteer make you change the way you race? Like maybe when you're grabbing water from someone along the way, you think, thank you for your time. And then at the end, if maybe you've had a bad race and you're kind of like, I don't know, like stomping your feet because you're annoyed, you remember that you were that volunteer and you're just trying to help kind of thing. Did it change your perception of your races?
A little bit. I think I've been aware of what the volunteers do for some time. So I've generally made an effort to thank them. Mm-hmm. But I think especially when you're handing out refreshments, what I have changed is to say, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here, instead of just thank you, which is, it carries the same meaning, of course, you're thanking them. But the one thing is it is meant as, okay, thank you for handing me water. The other thing is really, thank you that you enable me to be here to do it this way. So this is something that I've changed.
Yeah, great way to think about it. Thanks so much. And finally, what is a running for real moment you'd like to share?
I think the most running for real was probably one of my most enjoyable and also pretty tough trail races that I did here in Germany. It's at a mountain bike park. So it's on the mountain bike trails, up on the hill, it goes down, goes up. I think over 34K, you cover about 1,000 meters elevation gain total. Okay. And that was a couple of years ago. It was a super intense hot summer. The race started at 11 a.m. in general compared to the US. Our races here start much later, like a 9 to 10 a.m. start is pretty normal. So that one was 11. It was already 25, 26 degrees. That's lower 80s. 80 something,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was predicted to go down up into the high 90s, 30 plus degrees Celsius. And that's exactly what happened. And I think after probably 15K, I was pretty much done with that race. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wanted to run, I wanted to finish. There was also not really an option. It's trails, so you might cut it short, but in the end, you do have to get up the mountain again. And I I just don't do that well in the heat in the first place. I don't enjoy it. I'm better in cold. And I was done. I was really, really tired. I was hot. I was sweaty. I was going through water like nobody's business. And I mean, I wasn't the only one. Everybody was. But it finishes off at the end with a climb. You're pretty much at the bottom, and then you have to climb all the way to the top.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, just have to do this now. And there's a picture of me. I think I look extremely tired in it. I posted it in the terrible race pictures. But yeah, that one moment where just like, in a certain way, there was nothing else to do but finish it.
Yeah.
And I knew I was physically capable of finishing it. But there were very, very few races that I've been that tired ever.
Yeah. Well done on you for doing it and making it. And thank you for sharing and being honest with us about that. That's definitely an experience that most runners have been through at some point, even though we wish we hadn't. And obviously the reward on the other end, knowing that you made it through that, makes it feel so much better. Well, thank you so much, Florian. This has been wonderful to learn more from you. And thank you for all that you do within the community. We truly appreciate you.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Tina. Thank you for talking to me.
Alfred, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. I am excited for the listeners to get to know more about you. You have a few things that people know you for in the community, which we might talk about, we might not. But who is Alfred Jongsma?
Alfred Jongsma is, I guess, a middle-aged IT guy that is trying to stay in shape.
Okay, if that I guess that works. But I think there's a few more compliments we could add in there if I wanted to. And love having you part of the group. One thing that comes to mind with you, just to start with, is, you know, most people in the community, the Superstars community, are in there because they don't have necessarily someone in their friends and family, close family, who they spend their time with running and who understands, who gets it. And now you have not only brought your wife Sylvia in there, but you've also got your daughter and I believe your son-in-law as well. Is that right? Into correct, yes. The community. So tell us, you must have one of those perfect setups where the whole family runs and you all get to do events together. What is that like?
I don't know if it's a perfect setup. It was one of those weird things that people call you a hero for some reason. I don't know why. Sylvia says she's mentioned I'm her hero, and I guess Jennifer said she was impressed or whatever by me running, and then I guess I don't think he's ever said it. So she wanted to start running because she wanted to lose some for baby fat, because after having 2 kids, that's what happens. Yeah. And then her husband Brent also started to run. We ran I think a 5K New Year's Day long time ago. And I think he thought he could beat me because he's like half my age, right? So he went out of the gun like a madman. And I thought, okay, we'll see ya. And then eventually I caught up and I passed and I beat him. And I think that was possibly the catalyst. Now he may argue against that, but I think that may have been the catalyst to maybe get him to start running. Again, over the years, Sylvia and I both continued to run, and Jen and Brent, they also wanted to keep running, again, get in shape and whatnot. Yeah,
which is great. And we love that. And, one thing you just said right there, that they are impressed by you, they admire you, your family really looks up to you. Now, a lot of that is because of something that you are going through, and I'd love for you to kind of share a bit about this rare form of blood cancer that you do have, and what that means to not only your running, but also the rest of your life.
Yeah, so what I have is something they called polycythemia vera. It's a condition, they don't know what causes it, and they don't know how to cure it. So it's one of those things, when I first heard about it, I had no clue what it was. So I thought first thing you do is you do the internet search for it, right? And basically, it sums up with, it won't kill me, so I won't die from it, but I will die with it, unless they've come up with a magical cure. When I was first diagnosed, my hematologist told me that I had a prognosis of about 25 to 40 years. And when I first heard that, I thought, wow, that's well, that was kind of in the plan anyway, so it doesn't much change things. But what it actually does, what it is quickly is just my body is starting to make more red blood cells than it should. Now, normally the numbers that they're looking for is a hematocrit number, and I think the number is 45%. So 45% of my blood is supposed to be red blood. But when I went to my hematologist, my numbers was up to 62%. Oh. And my hematologist actually made a comment that said she's surprised that I hadn't had a heart attack by now, because with the red blood the percentage gets so high, your blood actually gets thick.
Yeah, of course.
And, with that heart attack, stroke, clots are their main symptoms, or its main things that they're concerned about. And she said that because I was running so much, my heart was very strong and I was able to push the blood through my system. And so my running, I could say, potentially could have saved my life so far.
Absolutely. I could definitely see that being the case. And it does show that, you putting your health first and looking after that body of yours, giving yourself a nice strong heart has helped you. And yeah, like you said, maybe saved you. And, I'm sure a lot of people may have been thinking, oh, red blood cells, that doesn't sound, that sounds like a pretty good thing. More red blood cells, more oxygen to go around. But obviously it's not necessarily a good thing. And do you find there's any side effects to your running? Does it kind of, I guess, maybe keep things in perspective so that you always kind of keep yourself held back a little bit? Or do you have any other things you've noticed?
So one thing that the hematologist did mention is she described it somewhat like blood doping, like what they do in sports. And I thought, oh, this is good, kind of, because, blood doping, it gives extra, they put a reoxygenated blood back into the athlete, so that gives the athlete more energy. So their endurance and their speed and all that kind of stuff increases. However, as I've found out, is when it happens naturally, as in my case, the effects are opposite. So I have reduced energy. So one of the symptoms is fatigue. So really? Suvi can attest to this. I can get tired very easily, or I'm tired all of the time. So
which doesn't make running easy.
No, exactly. So my running has I've slowed down. Now, I don't know if it's because I was tired. I wasn't running as much. So it's kind of like the snowball effect. I get the polycythemia, the PV, that makes me tired. Yep. And because I haven't been running as much, my fitness has dropped a bit in the last year or two. So when I start running at the paces I have run before, the effort seems an awful lot harder. And so it seems that everything seems to be tougher and harder, and I get tired quicker even when I'm running. But when I do run, I get energy. So I'll wake up and I'll be very tired. I'll go for a 5 or 10K run, and I feel a lot more awake than I did when I just woke up after a good sleep.
Yeah, which I think is quite often the case with, just running in general, isn't it? Where we might have had a tough day at work and you're like, I don't want to go for a run, but you get out there, and yours is obviously partly physical that you feel better, but also mentally as well, knowing that you've gone out there and done something for your health. Now, just kind of a fun thing to end up, you've always been someone who's kind of been someone who's brought fun and, just life to the group. Originally known for doing your run as a unicorn along the beach, and you've managed to pop unicorns in a lot of other places, including, was it your birthday cake or was it Jen's birthday cake?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it was my birthday cake.
In the shape of a unicorn, which we love. So Tell us, why make things a bit silly, and what would be the value for anyone else doing that who kind of maybe is feeling a bit stuck in their running and needs some fun brought in there?
For everything I do, I try to bring a little bit of lightheartedness to everything. I've never been a very, really serious type of a person. Even in dire situations, I try to make light of the situation. Now, not to be right, I don't want to make light of this too much, but sometimes we say, Suv and I, we're also both make fun of stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm hesitating to say it, but sometimes we put the fun in funeral.
I can see that. Yeah, making sense.
If we're at it's a sad situation, but we like to remember the good stuff, and focus on the fun and the good, and kind of put the sadness to the side.
Absolutely. I think that's easy for any of us to get all too serious and doom and gloom on the bad things in our life. But like you mentioned, you know, even in a sad situation like a funeral, it should be a celebration of life, not so much a sad moment. So I think that's great. And you've definitely been the one to do that in the community, and very much well loved within the community. And what does the Running for Real community mean to you?
It's just a group. Like, well, initially I found it through your podcast on the Runners Connect, and then I followed you over to your own venture,
which you are now a guest on. Isn't that cool?
This is pretty cool. Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
So the running room, Running for Real community, basically it's just an extension of the local community that I have here.
Great.
And I find it fascinating that I'm chatting with people from not just Canadians, but people in the U.S., people in Spain, Australia. It's like, wow, this is the what the internet is all about. You know, making a worldwide community. And the one thing that I love about the Running for Real is I don't think sometimes I take myself away from social media, because sometimes you can get sucked into it and it can consume all of your time. Yeah. So I try to, I don't go cold turkey, but you know, I'll scroll through Facebook, a couple of posts, and then I'll stop. But one thing, so I haven't seen all of the posts, but one thing that I've noticed, one thing that I've actually noticed an absence of is I have never seen a negative comment on the Running for Real Facebook group. Whereas other groups, like I'm part of other groups, even from my PV, you know, these support groups and whatnot.
Yep.
So I'm shocked within an actual support group for a medical condition, there's a lot of negativity against people for themselves, and also for people against other people, which is shocking. But in this group, I don't see any of that.
People get down on it's in a like positively spun way, or everyone's kind to rally someone back up. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. People get down on themselves, and I can understand that. But you know, when people do that, you know, there's 20 different posts saying positive things, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. That's really cool to hear. And finally, what is a Running for Real moment you'd like to share with us?
Like I said, I think I had one, but I forgot, so I can't really remember it.
Well, how about the fact I'm looking at you right now? I'm looking at Alfred right now, and he has a big pile of medals over his shoulder hanging up on a wall. Can you imagine any other sport that would, you know, have things just like everyone have all these medals that they kind of hang up, or something memorabilia? So I think that's a very Running for Real moment in itself, that you have all those medals hanging up there.
Yeah, absolutely. You can participate in a sport. And it's the only sport that I know where you can participate with Olympians at the same starting gate.
Yep,
you know, this is incredible.
So true.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Alfred. This has been fun, and I hope the listeners enjoyed getting to know you more. Thank you for all that you do in the community and for bringing that sense of fun. We truly love you in the group.
Well, thank you very much, Tina. It's my pleasure, my honor.
This podcast is sponsored by Hoka One One. Hoka One One is a running shoe unlike any other. Run in their newest release, the Bondi 6. It is a running shoe with a marshmallow soft cushion and marshmallow lightweight. In the 6th edition, the Bondi has refined Meta Rocker technology to give you a smoother, more balanced ride. It is shockingly lightweight for how much cushion it packs, and the Bondi 6 will give you maximum comfort in every mile. I know you think it's too late to start thinking about a new shoe for your upcoming races this season, but actually it isn't. I wore my Hoka One Ones for an hour the first time I put them on, and they felt great. The Bondi was one of the first shoes Hoka created, and it's become a fan favorite for good reason. Just try it on today and experience the sweetest cushion. Get yours today by visiting hokaoneone.com/runningforreal with the number 4. And use promo code RUNNINGFORREAL, again with the number 4, for free expedited shipping and become part of the family. It's time to fly. By now, you've heard me talking about how much I love Body Health Perfect Amino for recovery. But did you know that if you try it and don't like it, you can get your money back? 100% of it. That's how confident they are in what they are making and how much it will help you to recover. And hopefully by now you know how much I appreciate it. Especially as I'm trying to get back to running after having a baby, and let's just say things break down a little bit easier than they did before, so I definitely need them to help me stay healthy. Perfect Amino is made of the 8 essential amino acids our bodies need them to function. And this will help it kind of work as it should be. And as a vegan-sourced, non-GMO, gluten-free, soy and dairy-free product, you don't have to worry about food allergies affecting your ability to recover. So with marathon season fast approaching, give yourself the best chance of getting to that start line healthy as those intense workouts and accumulated miles begin to take their toll. Remember, you can use coupon code TINA10 to get 10% off at bodyhealth.com. What do you have to lose? Julie, thank you so much for joining me on the Running for Real podcast. I am really excited for the listeners to get to know you more. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Tina.
This is going to be a lot of fun. And just to get people warmed up, those of you who do not know you within the Superstars community, who is Julie Atkinson?
I'm just me. I'm just Julie. I'm 45 and I live in Scotland, just outside of Edinburgh. I work part-time. I have a partner and a son and a dog, and I love to run. And I found your community by autumn last year, by October sort of time, and I absolutely love it.
One of the newer people, I have to say, but you've settled in lovely, and we're going to talk about that more. But do you know what I love? What you just said there. When I asked you that question, you said, I'm me, I'm Julie, which at the end of the day, that is what you are. And it's so easy for us to say, I'm a runner and I'm a da la la la, but that's what you started with. And I love that because it is who you are, and you are who you are. You're not the runner named Julie, you are Julie. So I love that you started with that, and hopefully others picked up on that. So let's talk about your run streak, as I know we have quite a few members in the community that are very interested in this. Not so much that you are a runner who's done, 25 years of everyday running, but you started running and then you just kept going and kind of started this run streak and kept going with it. So tell us about how long it's been and how you went from essentially zero to just running every day.
Well, the last time I ran, I was probably in my early 20s, something that I started with my flatmates at uni. And yeah, we sort of stopped pretty quickly. I did enjoy it, but I don't know why. It's one of these things when you're young and you never really appreciate that you should keep doing something while it's easy and while you can. And then in 2016, I've never done a New Year resolution, but I decided to do monthly resolutions. So every month I did something different and figured, well, I could do it always for the month. I had got a Fitbit in February for my birthday. So in March, my challenge was 4 steps. And then it was later in March, actually, that my son pointed out that I could get a lot more steps if we went for a run. So he said, well, why don't we go for a run? Thinking I'd never say yes. So
and
I said,
how old is
well,
your
yeah.
son?
He's 17 just now. Okay, so great. He was 15. Yeah. So he said, let's go for a run, thinking I'll say, no way. And I was like, yeah, let's go for a run. I really wanted these steps. So we went for a run. And then we did that another couple of times. And then he wasn't really interested. So I went out a couple of times by myself. He quickly abandoned me. And then so April's resolution was to run every day. And so I did this every day for the 30 days, and I really liked it. And I really, really liked it. So I thought, no, I'm going to keep this going. I'll start something else for me as well, but I'll just keep going with the running. And then I sort of looked it up and thought, I wonder, should I be doing this? And discovered it's a whole thing, and people do it for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully you'll be one of those people.
Hopefully.
And so has it been since then you've not missed a day?
That's right. 1st of April, 2016.
That's awesome. And just amazing to me that you can go from zero to every single day. And how have you managed that? Like, what's helped you to, a lot of people when they get into running, they think, once they think, this is fun, I like this, it's very easy to keep adding more and more and more and build up too quickly and then end up with an injury that you can't keep a run streak no matter what you do. So how did you kind of rationalize in your mind to kind of keep yourself from getting carried away?
Well, I think because once I'd done it from the month and I wanted to keep going, so, even to do it for 30 days in a row without having run more than a handful of times the month before, I always wanted to keep going. So I made sure that I didn't do too much. So I would take it easy. I would take it slow. I wasn't, going, massively long distances. And then when I started keeping going sort of into May and into June, and I thought, I can go a little further, but I was just so cautious. So many people in Superstars keep saying, that they increased their mileage and they increased their distance or their time or their minutes or whatever it was so quickly. And I think I just did completely the opposite. And I was so slow. So
which is why you've stayed healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, by the end of 12 months, my longest run was less than 10 miles. Because literally I had sort of started adding on, I do run in kilometers and I'm getting better with my conversions, but I had started adding on literally 1 kilometer on a Saturday, but only each month. So, by the time it got to sort of 5 months in, I'd started at 4. So I was still only at 8 kilometers or roughly 5 miles. Once I got to 10 kilometers for my Saturday long run, I kept doing that for ages. And then, because I was running on my own, I didn't have anything to compare myself to, but I was like, I can't get any faster. Why is this? So I thought, right, well, I'll try running a little bit longer, but slowing it down. And then after that, I kept adding 3 kilometers a month. So yeah, it took me ages to actually get any distance going.
I think that's a good point that, it's very easy at the beginning to think when you're just starting out. And I know we have a lot of superstars who are just kind of starting out or coming back from an injury to feel the need to, like, well, everyone else is posting about their 8-mile runs as an easy run, so I need to get back there. Or, talking about, well, like for me, I've often talked about an hour being kind of the magic number of where I feel like I'm recovered from an injury. So other people do the same. I just want to get to this level. But you've brought up a good point that if you really want to longevity be your key, if you really want to stay healthy but be able to do it more, then maybe that is the kind of way to go. And I just wanted to bring attention to that, because I think that really should give people something to think about, because it is important to know. And you've mentioned to me when I asked you some things to talk about, you said, I love running, and if I ever don't, then I'll stop. That's my motto in life. Got to enjoy it. So tell us about that. Like, are you saying that every step of every run you enjoy, or how do you know the difference between knowing when to push through because you're struggling a little bit versus not enjoying it?
I think going out every day, people say to me, oh, well, what about, actually, I had someone at work who for long enough thought that every day meant Monday to Friday. And I don't even work on a Friday, so I don't know what they thought happened on a Saturday and Sunday. But you're talking, people say, what about birthday? What about Christmas? But what about when it's raining? What about when it's too hot? And I think it just becomes a habit. So you do it. And I think I always feel better afterwards. So it's actually really pleasing to have a really hard run, because when you finish, you feel so good because you think, I did that.
So even if you're not enjoying it in the moment, you count that joy as even afterwards.
I mean, if you're doing something, I prefer to run longer distances because you're running them more slowly. So say if you were doing a race, if you're doing something like a 5K, I think it's always going to be quite hard. So the sooner you get to the end of that, the sooner you can finish and appreciate it. And it is short enough for that. I think there was one time sort of in my first winter when it was about -6 Celsius. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think that would probably be about 20 Fahrenheit.
So pretty cold, and it was sort of hail mixed with snow, and I was running along, and I was wearing a top with the little metal bits that you have for like your hood, to put your hood tied together.
Yep.
I can't think what you call them, but just sort of to tighten it. And they were flapping about, and one hit me in the eye, and it was just so cold, and the other one kept hitting me, and I was trying to hold on to them, and I couldn't see properly because of the snow and the sleet. And actually it was just a bit surreal, and I was just running along thinking, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Do you know, there was nobody else on the street. And then I sort of just started laughing at myself. I was like, right, well, by the time, if it's raining and you're out for 5 minutes, you're wet anyway, so you might as well keep going. So yeah, get home and go, right, well, hopefully that one won't happen again. But
yeah, so
I think if it was always easy, then when you did enter a race or you did hit a problem, it's going to make it harder. But it is always the tough ones that teach you things, or you know how much you can push yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Cool. And so what does the Superstars community mean to you?
Oh, it's so good. I mean, everyone is so friendly, so supportive. you never feel alone. It's very much a community, and people really care. I really like the daily posts, the ones that sort of Vaughan had started, and now there's sort of a team of people that are introducing them, because they've all got their own personality that they bring to them. And I just like, as well as, doing a quick, sometimes people, we won't even bother saying how our miles or minutes were for the day, but, there'll be another little bonus question or something that you did that day, something that you're doing at the weekend, something about your family. And it just really feels like so many people. There's a core set of people that tend to answer very regularly, and at least a few times a week. And then there's others that check in, and it's always really nice because people will say, "Oh, it's nice to hear from you," or we missed people, and we do notice when people aren't there as well.
Sure,
so
yeah, no, definitely, and I know that's one thing that people have commented to me about you, is that you do notice when people aren't there, and you really try and make people feel welcome, especially if they're new or anything like that. So thank you for your part in that, because I don't know where we would be without you either. So thanks for your part. And just to finish off here, tell us a running for real moment that you've been through.
Lots of them. Lots of them over 2 years. Possibly, actually, a race that I did in June. And it was a race without a route. So, well, not an actual route. So it was called the 7 Hills of Edinburgh. So like a lot of cities, Edinburgh's built on 7 hills. So we started on top of one hill, and just basically, it wasn't chip time, just sort of started and everyone piled out down this hill. We had to go to the other 6 hills in order and then finish on the first hill. So how you got there was entirely up to you. So there were no streets closed. So you're going through the city, through the streets, through the tourists. You're going just through, fields and anywhere you could, going through a stream and things, traffic everywhere, just to get to the checkpoints, to the trig points, and stamp your bib and on to the next one. So I am not very good with directions. And anytime I enter a race, I'm always convinced I'm going to get lost. There's always someone to follow, but I'm always just really worried about it. So I was on this race, and I was on my way to the 3rd hill. And in my head, I kept forgetting what the hills were, or I kept forgetting and thinking I'm not going to get them in the right order. And I suddenly panicked, and I could only remember 6 out of the 7. And I thought, well, what happens if I get to the hill and it's number 4? And I've just managed to, get in with a group of people who are running. Am I going to have to go back and do another hill? Or what happens if I get to the end and I've only done 6 of the hills? But it was so good. I didn't miss out any hills. But the whole situation, because normally you are in a race, you're all going in the same direction, everyone turning at the same point. But this, you would come down an alley or come out of a street, and there'd be people bursting out of the hedge, all around you, and firing around a corner, and people coming from all directions. And I just think it must look so funny, because there were some people, residents in certain areas who obviously know the race and were out and support people. But then other people must have just thought, well, they're cheating because we were all trying to take shortcuts everywhere. So it was absolutely amazing.
That is such a fun race.
It was brilliant. You have to come and do this one.
Yeah, that sounds like so much fun. I would love that. So I might actually get you to share that within the community, because I think people will be interested to learn more about that and maybe have it as a bucket list race someday. So thanks so much for sharing. And Julie, thank you so much for being here with us today. This was really great to learn more about you, and I'm sure the community has loved it as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for asking me. Thank you.
Wasn't that fun? Each of them had a unique story to share, and about things we'd have absolutely no idea about from seeing them within the community. These guests were the ones that you recommended. I asked in the Running for Real Superstars community who you would love to learn about, and these were the ones that you came to me with. And I think you picked very well. If you're not already a member of the Running for Real Superstars community, I'd love for you to join, and you can at tinamuir.com/superstars. And you can also find links in the show notes where I put everything we talked about today at tinamuir.com/episode 73. And I realized that I have not actually given out any of my social media information in a while. So if you are a new listener, I would love to connect with you, obviously through the Superstars community, which I hope you're already there. But also you can find me through Instagram at tinamuir88, Twitter at tinamuir, or Facebook, facebook.com/real Tina Muir. So I look forward to seeing you there. And next week, we have 4-time Ironman World Triathlon champion, Chrissy Wellington. Many of you may have heard of her before. She's kind of a big deal. She held all 3 of the world and championship records relating to Ironman distance triathlons. And she is such an inspiration. You're going to love her. And I'm also excited to hear about her new role as the global lead for health and well-being for Parkrun. She also has a new book out if you are interested in reading something. Maybe we can add it to the Superstars Book Club. So Alison, you better get on that. Tune in next week to hear more. I hope you have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.